Hello entrepreneurs, and thank you for joining another session of H&B Tech Webinars project. Thank you very much our sponsors Misty MIT Israel, Mobixon, Beertech, Big and YAC Young Adult Center from Haifa. We're honored to bring you Ariel Halevi tonight. Ariel Halevi is a founding partner of Vayomar, Israel's largest training and consulting firm for communication, competencies, and a vendor of choice among leading global brands. Becoming an entrepreneur at the age of 22, Ariel has since founded and managed several high-tech companies with operations in Israel, Australia, and several European countries. Driven by the passion for education, innovation, and technology, Ariel has also co-founded How Did I Do? Vayomar's online presentation analysis tool that enables individuals and organizations to measure and improve their impact in a quantifiable way using a combination of automated peer-to-peer and expert feedback. So with no further ado, please welcome Ariel Halevi.
Thank you, Oded. Okay, so how to build a winning 60-second pitch. You know, if you've been presenting or if you've been experiencing demo days over the last, 10 or 15 years, you must have noticed an interesting trend. And the trend is that it used to be you'd had 20 minutes to present, you could go through an entire investor presentation, and the idea really was, how do I walk away from this presentation with somebody saying, I want to invest in your company? And then gradually the world started moving faster, more and more startups started evolving, and it became impossible to showcase the unbelievable number of new ideas that were out there, and gradually demo days and these events started growing shorter and shorter. And today, you really have to be able to present your venture in 60 seconds or less if you want to be able to make it out there. I would argue, though, that this is a positive evolution. My experience over the last 15 years working with people on various forms of presentations has taught me that when it comes to innovation and startups, if you can present your presentation, if you can cover your venture in 60 seconds or less, you have a great sense of your own product, and then you can build on that to whatever you want. So later on, when you are invited to give a 7-minute presentation, an 8-minute presentation, it'll seem like a cinch because the core components of your presentation will already have been dealt with in the first 60 seconds. So I want to begin by understanding, first of all, the idea of ROI, the return on investment of a winning 60-second pitch. And this will help you understand why you don't really need more than 60 seconds. I'll tell you what it's not about. You are not delivering a 60-second pitch in order to secure an investment. I understand that there are investors in the room, but the goal is not to get them fully convinced that they want to invest in you by the end of your 60-second pitch. That's not a realistic expectation. That's not what they're looking for from you. And there might be clients in the room. And it's not about getting them to say, okay, I want 5 of those. A great 60-second pitch will do 2 things for you. Number 1, it will capture the audience's attention in a way that they are more likely to remember you later on. And it will get them to come find you. In any interpersonal dynamic, somebody wants somebody else more. Now, before you get up on stage, you want the audience more. You want their attention, you want them to like you, you want to be able to create a relationship with them so that you can promote your business. You do your job well with a 60-second pitch, and they will come find you at the end of the evening. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to capture their imagination with our innovative idea, and we want to get them so interested so that they're actually coming to find us. What I'm going to be doing in this lesson is showing you how to build a 60-second pitch, and we're going to be doing it using 4 key components. We're going to talk about your powerful opening. We'll talk about the venture essence. This is by far the single most important component of a 60-second pitch. We'll talk about the importance of showing traction and how to end with an effective call to action. You can already guess many times that call to action will be, come find me. So let's jump right in. Why do you need a powerful opening? What's the idea? So think about it this way. I've been to demo days where we've had 50 startups present in less than 60 minutes. You heard me right. 50 startups got up one after the other and presented, 60 seconds each. Excuse me. We got it done in 60 minutes. It seems like a mission impossible, but it isn't. Now, if you're in that kind of scenario, and even if there aren't 50 startups, even if there are 8 startups that are talking one after the other, you need to understand there are 3 possible scenarios for you. Either you're the first one speaking, which means you have to deal with the people still finding their seats, still taking the last bite of whatever food that was being given out, finishing a last conversation, ending that last text message. They're not with you. You could be somewhere in the middle, right? Or sorry, you could be closing the event, in which case people are completely overloaded. They have heard all the startups before you. Or you could be somewhere in the middle, and then all you're dealing with really is that one or two of the startups that presented before you have captured the imagination of the audience, and they're still thinking about that idea. So the bottom line is this: it doesn't matter where you're located in the presentation order. When you get up on stage, you do not have your audience's attention yet. Your job, before you do anything else, is to get everybody to focus on you like a laser. So just imagine every person in the audience is like a scattered beam of light, and they're lighting up the room. You want to get to a point where all of them are paying attention to you as if that one big spotlight is on you and only on you. That's the power of a powerful opening. If you don't do that and you skip to the rest of the material, what you're doing is you're simply giving up huge chunks of audience attention. Think about that as a resource. And if you don't have that chunk of attention, you've lowered your statistical chance of impressing the audience or getting that specific person in the audience who is the perfect investor for you to come find you afterwards. So that's why we need a powerful opening. Now the question is, how do we do it? So again, let's talk about how we don't do it. Nobody cares who you are at the beginning. And so a lot of people get up and say, hi, my name is Ariel Halevi, and I'm one of the co-founders of Vayomar, blah, 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 blah. It's boring. It's uninteresting. It doesn't contain any value. It definitely doesn't attract the audience's attention. So we don't start with, hi, my name is. We will introduce our name and our company's name later on. Right after the powerful opening, we'll do it again just before we end and before our call to action. We'll do it when we know that we've gotten the audience's attention and that we've triggered their imagination in a way where they're asking themselves, who is this interesting presenter? When they ask that question, that's when we're going to hit them with the answer. Until then, we're not going to start with our name, but we're going to start with something else. There are multiple ways to start with a powerful opening. Again, all of them share one purpose: capturing the audience's attention, and also, in the process, getting the audience oriented with the context of your venture. Meaning, what space are you in? Are you in transportation? Are you in dating? Are you in lifestyle? Are you in biomedical, nanotechnology, space? It doesn't matter. By the end of your powerful opening, your audience knows what your venture is all about. And you can do that by using a really great, powerful statistic. I don't know, let's say that your venture is solving a problem for 113 million blind people in the world. So you get up with a powerful statistic. You don't even say hi, you don't say thank you. Get up on stage, you take a deep breath, and you just shout out a number at the audience. 100 million, 75,000 people cannot see what you and I see every day. Yes, I'm talking about the blind and the visually impaired, ladies and gentlemen. This is the audience I'm going to be talking to. That could be a powerful opening. You could start with a powerful quote. That quote could be by somebody famous. It could be something funny. It could be by an opinion leader in the industry who has said something that sets the stage or that is a foundation that supports the idea behind your venture. You get up and you dramatically start with a quote. Okay? Now, both the first example of a great statistic, the example of a quote, both of them will require a touch of drama. And so you either have to get comfortable with that idea or you have to move on to something else. Not everybody likes to be dramatic. Not everybody feels comfortable getting up on stage and just, capturing the audience in that way. So if you don't want to use a great statistic and you don't want to use a quote, start with a question. Questions are extremely impactful in drawing people's attention in. Our brain works through questions. And so you could get up and you could say, how many people in the audience have found themselves in the following scenario? Or how many of you have ever been to? Or does anybody hear something to that effect? You are immediately engaging with the audience. It's very hard to ignore you when a question is being thrown at them. You could start with a gimmick. A gimmick could be, usually I've seen all kinds. Again, sometimes it calls for the dramatic, right? I've seen people dress up. I've seen people role play. If you feel comfortable doing that, That's great. Why? Because a lot of times demo day is not just this dry technical process of reviewing one after the other all these ventures. These events are a celebration of innovation. They're a social event. People are meeting up against each other and they're talking about new innovations. It's fun. There's a great atmosphere. So to contribute to that atmosphere with a gimmick can be great. If you don't want to dress up and role play, a gimmick could also be some kind of visual stimulation that you offer them. If you have any kind of material device, anything tangible that your venture represents. For example, I've recently worked with a company that has created a device that you put in your mouth. It's for dentists that gives you 3D imaging of your jaw so that you don't have to go to a CT scanner, right? So they brought it with them. Another venture I've worked with found a way of storing green energy but through hydrogen, liquid hydrogen instead of gas hydrogen. So he brought it in a bottle. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, not only is this the best way to create energy, but it's also completely safe. And he took a sip out of the bottle, and the audience was like, oh, right? So boom, everybody has your attention now. It's interesting, and I understand that you're in the field of green energy. So these are different ways. Even if you come up with a sixth or seventh possibility of a powerful opening, that's great. Be creative. As long as you understand that by the end of your opening, you must have accomplished two things. This will have been the ROI of the opening. First of all, the audience is completely focused on you. And number two, they all understand what space your venture is in. This is important because the space that you're in is the context. This is what sets the stage for all of the additional information you're going to be giving them, not just in this 1-minute pitch, but later on in the conversation. And yes, you know something? People want to know if you're not relevant to them quickly as well. We want to respect people's time. So if I'm an investor, and I only invest in real estate, right? And you're going to talk to me now about an online dating service. Maybe I'm going to use this 1-minute pitch to walk outside and take a bathroom break. And you don't care if they do that. Why? Because they're not interested in you anyway. You're not part of their portfolio. You really only care about the people who are highly relevant to you. So you don't have to be worried about that. Okay, so we understand our opening. Now we move to something else. And I want you to take a look at this picture. What you see here, I think this is a very famous picture. You can pretty much guess. We're looking at something from the Wright brothers. And I want you to think about this for a minute. If I put you in a time machine, and I said to you, I'm going to let you travel back in time to the days before airplanes were invented. Now you have to get up in front of a bunch of investors and explain to them that you have an innovation. You want to invent the airplane. But I'm only going to give you 10 seconds, not 60 seconds, 10 seconds to describe to them what an airplane is. Think about it. What would you say? Now, I get a lot of answers in the seminars that I run, but fundamentally, almost all of them are able to do it in 15 seconds or less. So the Wright brothers described airplanes as machines that fly. But we today have a broader context, right? We understand that there's something more than just mechanical about the process of defying gravity. We understand that airplanes today are a transportation device, so that would be the space that we're in, right? Now, if I had to describe an airplane, all I would say was, ladies and gentlemen, an airplane is like a car that can get you from New York to San Francisco in 6 hours by flying. That's it. That's really what an airplane is. Now, why am I able to do that? Because I understand so fundamentally what an airplane is. It's so well integrated into my life that it's very easy for me to do two things. It's very easy for me to describe the value that I'm getting, which is very clear to anybody, no matter, even if you don't have to be an investor, you don't have to be an aerospace expert to understand the value of getting from New York to San Francisco in 6 hours, when before that it took you days, if not weeks. And of course, there's something extremely interesting and curious about the fact that it can fly. That's the innovative component. So that's how I would describe an airplane in 10 seconds or less. What about this? A microwave. This incredibly sophisticated piece of technology that shoots microwaves into the food, causing the molecules of the food to rub up against each other in a way that creates heat. Pretty incredible, right? How would you describe this in 10 seconds or less. And my favorite description for this is, imagine a box the size of a shoebox that you can put your food in, and 30 seconds later it's warm without having to light a fire. That's it. That's a microwave. Now, what's the common denominator between the airplane example and the microwave example? The common denominator is that I didn't need, I'm going to skip forward for a minute, I didn't need so much time in order to explain my innovation. The time required to present the innovation did not correlate with the level of complexity of the innovation. Okay? And this is something very, very important. A lot of you out there are doing amazing things. You're developing, some of the most incredible innovations in the field of medicine, in the field of aviation, in research. It's pretty incredible. Solar, green energy. The innovations that are out there are becoming more and more and more sophisticated. The science behind them is becoming more and more sophisticated. What you need to understand is that it doesn't matter how sophisticated your venture is. It should not take you more than 10 seconds to introduce the venture essence. And that essence is really combined of two elements. Number one, the value. What is the end value that your client, your consumer, will reap thanks to your innovation? And it doesn't. The innovation component also needs to be very simple. It doesn't need fire. It flies in the air. What the innovation component does is it very, very simply illustrates the difference between the world before my venture and the world after my venture. How did people used to get from New York to San Francisco? Oh yeah, well it took them 5 or 6 days. Well, now it takes them 5 or 6 hours. How did people used to heat up their food? Oh yeah, well they had to have a stove and they had to light a fire and it took them about an hour. Well, now they don't, right? So at the end of the day, your innovation is changing the world. It's changing the way people do things. That's what I want to understand when you explain the innovation. I don't want to understand how microwaves are generated, how they hit the food, what the speed of the movement of the molecules is. I don't need to understand aerodynamics. I don't need to understand lift and how broad the wings have to be in order for the plane to be kept in the air. I don't need to understand the idea of the engines that are propelling the plane. I don't need all that. What I do need to understand is the fundamental change you're generating. I had to take a car and drive through this way. Now I can fly. The value was I can now get there in 5 hours. Once you understand your venture essence, it will not only help you build a 60-second pitch, it will pretty much transform your ability to make decisions in your own venture. Startups can spend years trying to understand and figure out what their venture essence is. It's pretty incredible. You speak to people who've been running their startup for 2-3 years, and I'm sure this has happened to you, and your mother says to you, so wait, but what do you do? What did you say that you do? Mom, I told you a million times. Yeah, but what do you do? How many times have you come across that? And when you sit with yourself and your own team in the room, you realize that it's really very difficult for you to explain what you do in short and concise sentences. If that's the case, my argument, and it's a hard argument, is that you don't fully understand your essence. You don't have a sense of your venture. And in a way, that's a very, very important byproduct of building a 60-second pitch. It's going to go much further than just allowing you to present yourself in 60 seconds effectively. It will fundamentally transform the way you see your own venture. So that's the second component of a venture essence. Hopefully, you will have done the first component, the powerful opening, and the second component, which is the impressive traction, within 30 seconds or less. It doesn't have to be 15-15. It could be 10 seconds for a powerful opening, maybe 20 seconds for your venture essence. But in any case, if you're ever challenged to present yourself in 30 seconds instead of 60 seconds, what you're going to do is you're going to do a powerful opening and you're going to do a venture essence, and that's your 30 seconds. Now try to understand for a minute where your audience is at this point. You've managed to grab their attention, so they have a good positive experience of who you are as a presenter. You've captured their imagination and their interest by showing them that there's a great value out there that they want that you can generate. You've introduced a very, very interesting idea through the innovative component of your venture essence. So people are now really curious to learn more about, wait, how does it fly, right? How are you able to heat up the food without lighting a fire? There's that curiosity. So they want to know, what do they want to know now? Now they want to know, okay, I like the idea. I believe that a problem exists. It would be great if they could solve this problem. But can they? Is this the right team to do it? I mean, conceptually, I'm sold. It would be great if we could fly. But can these people build planes? And this is why the third component of a 60-second pitch talks about the traction. Everybody wants to join a winning team. The idea here is they want to see that it's not just an interesting conceptual theoretical idea that somebody sat down in their living room and thought about. They want to know that you actually have what it takes to get this ball rolling. They want to know that the train has already left the station. They're hoping that the train hasn't traveled too far, and they're hoping that it's not moving too quickly so that they can still get on board. But they're not going to get on board a train that may or may not be leaving the station in the next 2 weeks. So the idea here is to show that it's not only that we have an interesting idea, it's not only that we're solving an interesting problem in an interesting way, we've actually started moving. We've had the following technological accomplishments. We have a prototype. We've done a pilot. We have a patent that's pending, or we have a patent that's been approved. Anything that has to do with the tech-related accomplishments is great, is very important, obviously is more important as a function of how tech-heavy your venture is. Not all ventures are tech-heavy. Traction could be sales. You know, we've recently launched our alpha model. That was about 45 days ago. We're happy to say that we've already generated over $19,000 of sales from 15 different clients who have indicated to us that they're interested in expanding. These clients, oh wow, you're already selling. That's great. That's interesting. And by the way, it doesn't have to be just sales. Traction on a sales path could be, we are currently engaged in 3 partnerships with 3 major channels of distribution in our industry, or if we're talking about the innovation for the blind, we've connected, we have a letter of intent from one of the leading institutions for the blind that has told us they're interested in doing a joint pilot. It's starting next week. That's what would fall under sales related. It's anything that can demonstrate your progress in the market that you're going after. That progress could be through adoption of your product, through actual revenue that you're generating, through strategic partnerships. All of that would fall under the category of sales related. Traction could have to do with people who've already approved you, so to speak, right? Investors don't want to be the first and they don't want to be the last. So if there's somebody else that they respect that has already said, yeah, I've looked at these people, I looked at this venture, it seems very promising, I've already decided to invest, albeit my time and my energy and my social connections, that's your advisory board. If you don't have an advisory board, I'm going to put that as a side comment, you should have one. Advisory boards are very common in the world of innovation. It's a world that where people really like to help each other. If you have something really, really interesting, there's probably somebody out there who's an expert or who's a very, very well-known person who's got the kind of connections and expertise that could help you, that you could probably get to help you. Maybe give you an hour or 2 a month. A lot of times they'll do it even for free. Being able to use their name on your investor deck, being able to say, and Bill Gates is on our advisory board, you can already imagine the psychological impact that's going to have on your audience, especially on the investors. Obviously, the next level to an advisory board is somebody who's already said, I've looked at this venture, I've actually put money into this venture. So traction could be, we've already raised over $650,000 to date, we're currently seeking another 1 million, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that somebody else has already invested in you definitely constitutes traction, and you want to show it. And finally, if you're a very, very, very early stage venture, you don't have a prototype yet, you haven't had any kind of contact with the market yet, you don't have an advisory board, you don't have investors, and that's absolutely fine. There's pretty much 98% of ventures go through that phase at one point. Every venture has to start somewhere. And today, demo days are showcasing companies at all levels of maturity. So if you don't have the first 4 to talk about your team. Talk about yourself. Your traction is your life. What have you done before? What positions have you held before? If you are currently starting a venture and you're presenting a 1-minute pitch about a venture that's ultimately going to require your B2B business, and it's going to require reaching out to large enterprises like General Electric or whatever, or IBM, and for 10 years prior to you starting this startup, you worked in a large enterprise and you were responsible for business development initiatives with large corporations, and you've already had contact with these companies in the past, that's relevant. Because I know that you're going to bring the know-how, the maturity, the connections with people that you are going to need to reach out to with this venture. So if I know you have that, that to me is valuable assets. That's a form of traction in and of itself. So basically, the final thing we have is the idea of the call to action. You finished your traction. Your last thing, and I mentioned this in the beginning, is what do you want? What do you want from your audience? Do you want them to come talk to you? Do you want the investors to come talk to you? Do you want potential strategic partners to come talk to you? Do you want people who want to participate in your beta to come talk to you? So the last part of a 60-second pitch is a call to action. And what I want to show you now is how you prepare yourself for the 60-second pitch. And part of that preparation will also help you answer the question of what should my call to action be? So let's talk about the importance of preparation for just a minute. I can tell you from experience, this is one of the weakest links on the most part that I have found in most of the ventures that I work with. You find yourself 2 days before the event, 1 day before the event, just suddenly realizing that you have a 1-minute pitch to give tomorrow, and you're like, oh shit, and you start working. This is a fundamental mistake, and I understand why it happens. Because if you're doing your job right as an entrepreneur, you're busy. You're already working 15, 16-hour days. You're writing code. You're meeting with clients. You're preparing marketing materials. You're reading research. I get that. You're preparing materials for investors. You're going to meet investors. You're busy. If you're a good entrepreneur, you are busy 7 days a week. And it always feels like everything you're working on is more important, is more urgent, has more tangible outcomes than a presentation you may have to present in 2 or 3 days. But you need to understand something. If you are committed to making that presentation, you might as well invest properly. Otherwise, don't do it because you're busy. Don't go to that event and waste your time if you're that busy. Either you're committed to the event or you're not. And if you are in fact committed to the event, you have to prepare. I've been doing this for 15 years. Public speaking comes very naturally to me. And the last time I started a startup and raised over $1 million, I participated in a startup competition. 4 days before the event, I practiced my 7-minute pitch 4 hours a day, every single day, every time in front of 6 or 7 different types of audience every day. That's how much I practiced. That's how important it is. I cannot emphasize this enough. And the reason preparation is important is not just because it helps you make decisions on the content, as I'm going to demonstrate to you now with the idea of the call to action, but the reason it's so important is because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of processing time and resources from our brain to decide what you want to say, how you want to say it, while keeping eye contact with your audience and using your body language on stage. All of those things, they actually take up a lot of processing power from our brain. What practice does for you is help you refine your message, and it helps your brain become so accustomed to saying the same thing over and over again that when you finally have to get up on stage, you're spending almost zero processing time thinking about your next sentence, and all of that processing energy is being reallocated to other things that are really important, like the body language, like maintaining eye contact with the audience, and so on and so forth. So this is the importance of preparation. Let's talk a little bit about how that works. Number one, who are you talking to? Your event may bring forward, I've been to demo days that had 1,700 people, 700 people, 200 people, it doesn't matter. There are usually a lot of people out there. And number two, it's not just the quantitative aspect, it's also a qualitative one. The audience is diverse. You have law firms and accounting firms that are there to market to you later and offer you all kinds of interesting incentives for working with them early on. You have other potential startups that you might be able to create strategic partnerships with. You have potential clients and distributors. You have potential investors. Who are you? You have media for PR purposes. Your audience is diverse. My argument is you can't speak to all of them at once, especially not in a 1-minute pitch. So you have to ask yourself, within this plethora of different types of people that are in my audience. Who am I going after? Who am I interested in? That's your target audience. Am I talking to investors because I'm looking for money? Am I talking to the PR because I want them to quote me and write a piece about me? That's free advertising. Am I talking to potential clients? Am I looking for people to participate in my next beta? Who is my target audience? Be very specific about that. You might very well find that out of an audience of 200 people, there are really 2 people that you care the most about, and you're going to define them as your target audience, and that's going to affect which quote you start with. Because if you happen to know that the one person in the audience you're talking to is an incredible fan of Dr. Martin Luther King, the quote you start with may very well be a Dr. Martin Luther King quote, and that's immediately going to resonate with them. So that's the kind of focus that we want in defining our target audience. Define success, and this goes hand in hand. What is success here? Is success the number of business cards you get, the number of meetings that you're able to set up in that event? Is it who turns to you? Is it what they say to you when they turn to you? If it's the media, if you're going after PR, what is success? Is it that they retweet you or tweet about you? Is it that they write an article about you? What is it that you want them to write an article in the article? So the letters KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators. And I want you to fast forward the event in your head. I want you to say, the event's over. It could not have been more successful. Okay, what happened? Let's say that it was the most successful that it could be. Describe to me what happened, as if the event happened yesterday and you're sitting with me over a beer telling me, oh man, you can't believe what an amazing event it was. This happened to me, and this happened to me, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. What happened? I don't want general statements. I want things that actually happened. And for example, after the event, there was a panel where all the startups sat, and 50% of all the questions that were presented to the panel were directed to me. Or, when it was over, there was a line of 20 people waiting to talk to me. Who were these people? What did they say? What did they ask? Define your KPIs. Next, I mentioned this. Practice, practice, practice. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's the least popular advice I can give, and it's probably among the most important pieces of advice I can give you. Practice is important. And finally, calibrate your body. And this brings me kind of to the end of this session. Calibrate your body means get yourself into the right state of mind. How do you do that? Because nonverbal communication is approximately 90-something%, they say 93%, of the overall impact of interpersonal communication. So when you're communicating with somebody, your body language, the tone of your voice, the speed in which you speak, the words that you emphasize, the volume that you use, the expressions on your face, the eye contact that you make, the posture of your body, your hand movements, your body movements on stage, all of these things, your dress code, all of these things are very important beyond all the components I spoke about. So you want to get your body into the right state of mind. How do you do this? Number one, you want to identify a memory that best reflects the emotional state of mind you want to be in. Do you want to be excited? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be fearful? It doesn't matter. Think about a memory. Then, relive that memory. The way our brain works today, and I'm not going to get into that too much, but the way our brain works is, when something happens to us, there's a process, a neurological process called firing of the neurons, which today can be mapped with brain scanning technology, that represents what we're going through. What science has discovered is that when you recall a memory, the neurons fire. And so your body physically goes through the same experience. You can relive stress. If you relive a fearful experience, you'll sweat. And so you want to relive that memory, and then you want to get up on stage and present. If you can do that, you will have calibrated your body perfectly. So with that in mind, I hope that the next time you present a 60-second pitch, this model will help you nail it properly. Once you've done that, and you only have to do it once you have your 60-second pitch, I cannot even begin to describe to you how valuable that will be, not only for the specific event that you're participating in and presenting in, but in general in how you relate to your own venture. That's it.
And I have a short Q&A. So I have a question to you, Ariel. What for the entrepreneur that they want to practice his speech? What way can he measure himself so he work out?
How to work out?
Work out the right way, so not injure himself.
Don't try this at home, ladies and gentlemen. There are two ways you can practice.
Mm-hmm.
One way is on your own. in a room, preferably in front of a mirror where you can see yourself. When people see themselves, they automatically respond. And just say it out loud as if you're in front of a real audience, and do it over and over and over again. The higher level of practicing, which is more difficult logistically and more time consuming, is to actually do it in front of people. Take 3 or 4 of your friends, sit them around the table and say, I'm going to give you a pitch, I want your feedback. That will also get you used to the process of relating to people who are standing in front of you, which is a big part of being in front of a large audience. If you can't do it in front of your friends, if it's a 1-minute pitch, record yourself on your iPhone. Put your iPhone somewhere, or your whatever, your GoPro, record yourself, upload it to YouTube, send it to like 1 million people, and ask them, what do you think? What's your feedback? But really what we want is we want your body to do it over and over and over again, because it's a muscle. Your brain is a muscle.
This is what I say, workout. So
exactly, it is a workout. It is a workout. It's a habit. If you can, you know how habits are hard to break. So if you can create the right habit, it's good that it's hard to break that habit. So you want to create the right habit by practicing over and over again your presentation.
So after working the 1-minute pitch, what's the next stage? Like, should I practice for 5-minute pitch, or should I broaden that? Or?
Okay, so once you have a 1-minute pitch, and this is actually a very important statement. Some of you are not going to be asked to give a 1-minute pitch. Some of you are going to be invited to give a 7-minute pitch, right? Here is my recommendation. Before you start working on your 7-minute pitch, or 8-minute pitch, or 10-minute pitch, before you do that, do your 1-minute pitch. Because when people start working on a 7-minute pitch, inevitably, they run over time. You start building a 7-minute pitch, you find yourself doing a 9-minute pitch, and you're like, how am I going to cut this down? Everything I'm saying is important. What am I going to move? I have to say this, and how do you get it down into 7 minutes? If you are successful in building a 1-minute pitch, and I say to you, you have 6 more minutes to speak, you're like, amazing, wow, all this time, right? And then what do? You basically have to find the right format. There are different kinds of formats, but most of them are universal, which is like, powerful opening, what's the problem you're addressing, what's the solution, what's the market size, of that market size, what's the relevant addressable market for you, how do you plan on getting to that market, that's the marketing component, what's your go-to market, who are you going to be competing with, what are your advantages over these competition, how does this translate into a viable business model, and who on your team is going to do what to get there, and how do you plan on using the money, right? So that would be a 7-8 minute structure. Build that after you've done your 1-minute pitch.
Okay, thank you very much, Ariel.
My pleasure.
Big pleasure. Thank you very much.
Good luck to everybody.
And thank you, our audience. We hope to see you next month as well. It's going to be with Talia Wolf about marketing and mobile. Thank you, Kobe.
Welcome. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Ariel.
My pleasure.
And see you next time. Bye.